Hey y'all, here we are doing a little tool measurement here. We're zeroing out the old bore gauge at 54.05, which would be the bore that coincides with the .96, 5396 piston that we broke at Gingerman, right? Assuming that it measured 5396. You generally, brand new pistons with that number on the top, it's within a couple of tenths, plus or minus. What I found is the cylinder is bigger at the top than it is at the bottom, and I'm gonna show you how much smaller it is than the 5405, which it does measure at the top. Let's see. Let me show you that first. Make sure we're not on any aluminum. You see, we wiggle it back and forth. Yeah, let's see. Let's get down in off the protrusion. Yeah, we're about 3 to 4 tenths off, maybe 0 there. Maybe they're about 5. So we're real close to 5405, right? Millimeters. And you really got to mess with this thing now. So let's take a look at what's going to happen down below. Hang on, folks. To balance there. It goes hog wild the other direction. We'll rock it back and forth. 3.5 thousandths. Surely 3 thousandths if we're 5 tenths off at the top. Let me wiggle her back and forth, and now we're up to 4. Hope I'm not on the microphone, but you can see there the cylinder is a full 3.5 to 4 thousandths smaller on the bottom than it is on the top. Well, how the heck did it get that way? That's a good question. When I first ran this engine for the first time after it sat on the bench for 2 years, we ran it at Gingerman last year. One practice round breaking it in. The next practice round at about 75%, but we were getting 14 grand and then shifting, so we were reaching our shift point. We weren't, on into the corners and 100%. And then when it came time to race, it's all the practice we got were those 2 rounds, one break in, one semi-hard run, and then I threw it off the track after about 6 corners in the race. So we never really learned a heck of a lot about the radiator we went to go test over there, other than the fact that it should have run cooler in 5 laps of 70% on it, 75% on it practice. So that's all the time it had on it before we went to Grattan. You've seen the video from Grattan where we got what we call a cold stick, I guess. 4 corners, didn't touch the ring. We sanded the piston down, just sanded the scuffs, the scratchy stuff off the piston, and there was no transfer of aluminum, so we ran a hone through it. And I think this is where the problem started. Because from US Chrome, the cylinder I've showed you that Tony welded up for me is still virgin from US Chrome, and its top to bottom is within 3 tenths with Dennis's fancy tools of being the same measurement top to bottom. So it's straight and round and what I call square. It's straight down, right? This one here is you saw it, a full 3 to 4 thousandths depending on where you're catching it. And I haven't got the aluminum out of there yet. Maybe it'll be a little more consistent once we get the aluminum out, but obviously the top of it, certainly enough clearance for a 9.6 piston. I went through and did a bunch of calculations last night, changing metric to English, adding 3 thousandths to the English, supplying that number in English, and then changing it back to metric, right? So we set the caliper here at, or the mic here at 5405. and then zeroed out the bore gauge, and we put it in the top, and we were within what 3 to 5 tenths. Actually, I had it before the camera was on. It was at 0. And then we went ahead and checked the bottom side, and we can only really, like I said, with the aluminum on there, we can only really get the anvil point of this thing on this little spot here of that tongue, and then of course we can take a few different rotation measurements out of there, but obviously when I honed it, you don't get them back from the chromer out of whack like that. And the cylinder that Dennis checked from the RVX up here in the shelf with the stock factory chrome on it, he said is still the same size and good and round and straight. So yeah, the only thing I did differently between any of these is run a borrowed hone through this thing, and it was, I don't want to say in rough shape, but the stones had cracks in them and they weren't straight and sharp. They were kind of rounded off. I mean, this probably had a lot of use. Was it operator error? I mean, it might be. I was standing on top of a milk crate with a hole in it, hosing it down, and then going to town, buzzing away, with the hone. So to live and learn. To solve this problem, what do? I finally got an answer out of Sun-In to get the stones I need to cut Nicosil with my own hone. And so from now on, I'll be doing my own honing instead of borrowing somebody else's. And I may go ahead and do as Dennis did and invest a couple of bucks in some of this stuff. This is really neat, this little holder. It takes one of the hands away. You still need 3 hands to operate that thing and zero it out. You watch the gauge, and kind of when it's in, take it back out and kind of preset it to get it in the ballpark, and because you really can't hold it in here and then let go to grab the dial and dial it in, man. It's just so sensitive, man. So sensitive because it's in tenths of thousandths. So we're playing around. We're no longer frustrated, and we're actually kind of having a little bit of fun with this. So busted out a couple of the old pistons out of the trailer. I think the one we're going to go with is the KV95 piston from 2014. This one, that's the piston that was in her at MIS when we ran really well. We ran with Brian Wilhelm and Jeremy Baldy. That's on video here too. We also ran Grattan in July. We ran an April test and an October test on the same piston. That sounds like a lot of time, right? Well, it certainly isn't anywhere near as much time as the old Zattler piston that has Grattan in July of 13, and its CES race was an hour. Gingerman practice Saturday morning, I got about 40 minutes of practice on it when Dave used to advertise and actually complete extended practice, which he doesn't do anymore. He still advertises it, but he doesn't do it no more. MIS September 13, we put an hour and a half on it. We totaled it up about 3 hours of total time. And then when we went to Daytona 2013, that's right, the Daytona Unlimited video. The practice round is me putting this piston back in the motor with all that time on it, running practice, and then lining up and racing it, and putting a total of another 50 minutes on this piston. So this one, we're not going to put this one back in. That one's historic. So we're going to go ahead and run the KV95 piston, and we'll clean it up. We measured it. It's a 5393 piston. It suits the 54.0 hole. It might be 5401 in, just by rattling it around a little bit, the bore gauge. But I'm not completely convinced that this thing's going to hold water. I hope, Tony, I hope you're right. But it isn't going to cost us anything to clean up the garbage that's going on behind us in the bottom end, which also wasn't all that bad. We really got lucky that the motor didn't continue to turn over, or we caught the clutch and we didn't let it lock up. So, yeah, we'll get her cleaned up. We'll get the 95 piston cleaned up. We'll look at our notes and see what kind of gasket needs to go underneath the RVS cylinder compared to the VL. You see that bad boy's got a booster plate on it, because this standard cylinder is the first homologation. This is the second homologation. This one is that much taller. And the pistons and pin location corresponds. So you can't use an original VL 125 piston in the RVS, but you can use the RVS piston in a VL with a booster plate. So that's what we've been doing. We've got 2 of these VL cylinders, only 1 RVS cylinder. What we found over in England, if you can find RVS parts, they still want $1 zillion for them. The guys act like they're brand new, top of the line stuff. So we'll keep squeaking away with what we got. As I mentioned, we'll send that other one we've got over there out and get it welded up and chromed up over the winter. But what we're going to do is get that KB95 piston hooked up, cleaned up, ready to go. Bottom end cleaned up, ready to go. We'll get the bottom end all back together. We'll put this top end on. We'll fill it up with water. And it's like I told the wife, we'll start it up and we'll push it out in the driveway and just let it run for an hour. And let it run right up to 150, 160. We'll get it as hot as we possibly can. And we'll check it for leaks. If it leaks, we're done. If it doesn't leak, we'll continue to try and get guys wound up for Grattan so we can go test. We can't get guys wound up to go to Grattan in the next couple of weeks and get it paid for. I hate to say it, but I might just be off to Pittsburgh. Hey, it's a lot closer to Pocono. I could probably kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If it's still running, if I go to Pittsburgh and it continues to run the whole time, which it probably will. Look at this ugly thing, right? We're gonna win ugly. Who used to say that? Denny Hamlin or something, right? Gonna win ugly. We just get over to Pittsburgh and do our testing and stuff, and if there's anything left and the wife doesn't mind, maybe we'll just keep heading east and head out to Pocono and turn a couple laps there and get video for the insurance guys and move on. But that's it. That's where we're at. We're out here playing with the tools. Thanks again, Dennis. Man, this is really cool stuff. At first, quite a bit frustrating. After you play with it a while, you kind of start getting a feel for it. And I understand what you mean by if you don't play with it every day, and it takes some time to get back in the swing. So thanks again, Dennis. We're working on it, folks. We're finding the evidence that led to the damage. We won't do it no more. God bless y'all.